The daffodil that I'm going to show you is a little cutout from this journal. This is a little handmade journal that I created in 2020. It was March 2020, so it was lockdown time. It's a little handmade book with all sorts of papers in it, and I was really enjoying these little watercolor cutouts and especially enjoying the flowers. I was trying to find something positive to focus on during a really difficult time for those of us all over the world. So this one, I was trying to find little mindful moments in my garden, and you can see I did some writing here. It said, "And as the world felt both chaotic and calm, she watched the daffodils bloom as they always do." So this is the little flower we're going to do, and I'm going to show you how to do that with watercolor and a pen. The colors that I'm working with here, I have a couple brands, couple colors of yellow. This is a Daniel Smith Hansa yellow, a Winsor & Newton Cadmium yellow, Opus yellow ochre, and then just over here I also have quinacridone gold, which reads as brown on the camera but is actually a yellowy color. I have some greens already mixed here. I like to just keep my palette this way, but I'll mix up some more. What it looks like I have here is probably some yellow ochre, and I have this nice bright spring green by Daniel Smith, and I might pull in a little bit of brown into the green as well as I go about mixing some more. So those are the colors you can work with. You'll need a piece of watercolor paper, so I'm working with this Stonehenge Aqua cold press. It's 100% cotton paper. And then for the line work, we'll need a pen. Could use something like a Staedtler pigment liner or a Uniball Signo pen. I like the way this one flows. This one's a little bit of a finer line. And you'll need a brush. So the one I'm working with here is a Vinci brush. I kind of like it because it's moppy, and I'll make some interesting shapes with this, this kind of fluffy tip. But you could also work with a round brush, like this one's a number 14, or another fluffy brush option would be to work with a goat hair Chinese brush. Okay, so coming in with my big fluffy brush, I'm gonna wet it down. And I decided to clear off this part of my palette. I love the blues that were there, but I wanted a bit more space for mixing. I'm gonna start with this Hansa yellow, load it up. And I want a nice big puddle because I'm actually going to do a few different flowers. I recommend doing a couple different ones because each one's gonna have its own unique character, and you might find that one just speaks to you more than the other, or they all might turn out great, and then you can have several pieces of collage material. So I'm mixing these two yellows just because I wanna warm it up a little bit. Bring some of the cooler yellow to the side here, and then I might touch into my quinacridone over here as well. So the idea of this is to keep it really loose and let the brush work for us. So a daffodil has a center cone and then some petals around. So this is just a really loose interpretation. I'm gonna hold my brush like this instead of upright. And here we go. So first is that little cone. It's okay if you have splatters. And then some petals around it. I'll come in a little bit with the darker orange, maybe right in the center here. And then with a round brush, which I forgot I mentioned you'll need, I'm going to bring in some of the green. So I'll get to the spring green and then go into this yellow ochre area. Looks like I might have a little Amazonite on there as well. So just using a round brush that comes to a nice tip, while this is still wet, we're gonna pull in a stem. And I feel like this needs to come just, even though I'm being loose with the shape, I want to have somewhere for the flower to end. So this wet into wet, you'll see the green will right away spill into the beautiful yellow. I love the look that that makes. Press it out to the side here. Let it curve down. And then I'm gonna try it again in a slightly variation of the colors, varying the shape, and coming up with some more flowers that I'll enjoy. All right, that's it for the painting process. I told you it was super simple. Now we just need to let these dry, so you can let them air dry, or you can use a hair dryer to speed up the process, and then we'll do the drying part. Now that these are completely dry, I can go ahead with the pen work. So just looking back to our first example here, you can see that I'm using a really loose line, almost like a blind contour line or a continuous line if you do continuous line drawing. It's a very similar process. So this line goes around to further define the shape of the flower, but it also overlaps. It goes out into the white space, it cuts into the colored area and around the stem. So it doesn't have to be a perfect match, which is what I love about this process. So as I mentioned, there's a couple different pens you can use, and I think I'm going to start with the Signo pen. That's one of my favorites. I always like to have scrap paper here so I can just test the pen, make sure it's working before I commit to the painting. Out of these 5, this one is probably my favorite flower. I really love the way the orange settled out to the tip here, and there's some interesting variation in here. Also, I love the way this petal kind of curls up. It has this dancer kind of feel to it. These 2 are probably my least favorite. It was quite wet into here, and I'm just not very happy with the way that part turned out. This one I quite like how there's a little bit of white in here, and this has some interesting shapes and strong color on the edges here. So in terms of practicing with the drawing, maybe start with one that is one of your least favorite. Here we go. So you can lift your pen if you want to, or you can just keep it going like a continuous line drawing. I feel like the looser that you are with it, the less perfection you're trying for, the more of an organic feel it will have. So this one I didn't really do any interior lines like this. I could come back and do a little bit more if I wanted to, or just leave it like that. So that area I particularly love, so I'm making sure that the black pen doesn't obliterate the painting part there to have it show really nicely that color. Let's try starting in a different place on this one. I like how this has a few little splatters in here as well. So for this one, I could define that inner space and then do the petals on the outside. I'm just gonna let it run off the end because when I cut them out, I'll probably be trimming the bottom of the stem. I forgot how sticky that pad was. I haven't worked with it for a little while. The edge that holds it together is very sticky. I was trying to pull it off with a bone folder, and as you saw there, I got a little bit of a tear here and here, so I probably should have been using a knife instead. I often don't work with the knife to go around the block because it can sometimes cut the next page on the block, so I prefer to use a bone folder, or you could just use an old butter knife. But anyways, had a little tear. It's okay though, because the next step is that we're going to cut out the flowers using scissors. So here we have a nice little daffodil that we can add to a journal page, or you could put it with a few daffodils together or other flowers onto a greeting card. Nice little cutout. You can see that I left a white border around the edge. One, this is a little less fussy for the cutting, and two, it creates a nice little border for it. So if you're putting it onto a colored background, the white can kind of make it pop. I hope these sweet, simple little daffodils brighten your day.